Hey everyone, I'm Nico from Licks of the Beast. In this video, we're gonna take a close and detailed look at Iron Maiden's trademark gallop picking. There's no doubt that gallop picking is one of the key elements that make up Iron Maiden's sound. In fact, it's a main component of some of their better known songs, such as Run to the Hills, Hallowed Be Thy Name, The Trooper, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, Caught Somewhere in Time, The Evil That Men Do, Fear of the Dark, and, well, you get the idea. So it makes sense that if you're going to play Iron Maiden songs, you're going to want to have your gallop picking down pretty solid. But not just any kind of gallop picking, because Iron Maiden's gallop picking has some very distinct characteristics that make it sound the way it does. It's a unique combination of rhythm, timing, feel, picking pattern, and palm muting technique that come together to make that classic sound that we all know and love. So with that in mind, grab your guitar and let's get started. First of all, let's take a quick look at how the gallop rhythm is constructed musically. Back in the day, a lot of us would refer to this as triplets, but that was a wildly inaccurate term. Triplets divide each beat into 3 notes of identical duration. The gallop also consists of 3 notes per beat, but the first note is double the length of the next 2. So 1 note on the downbeat and 2 notes on the upbeat. In musical terms, this is called an 8 and 2/16. And the way to count this is 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. Now let's look at the picking pattern you'll want to use to make your gallop solid, tight, and precise while avoiding fatigue. Ideally, you'll want to avoid using strict alternate picking. This is because with this particular rhythm, you'd end up constantly alternating between upstrokes and downstrokes on the downbeats, and that tends to make the groove feel a bit erratic and not really solid. It can also feel and sound a bit sloppy, especially when playing power chords with this rhythm. So the optimal picking pattern for the gallop is down, down, up. Down on the downbeat, and then down, up on the upbeat. This will enable you to keep things nice and tight without tensing up, even at high speeds. Next, I want to talk about palm muting. Palm muting is exactly what it sounds like, using the palm of your picking hand to mute the strings so that they don't ring out. The heavier your palm muting, the tighter things will sound. When you hear gallop picking in many modern metal bands, or even power metal, speed metal, and thrash metal bands, it's often a very tight and compressed gallop. The feeling is one of blistering speed and machine-like precision. In Iron Maiden's music, however, the gallop is a bit looser and more fluid. The palm muting is lighter, and often they'll apply varying amounts of muting to make the gallop more dynamic and less uniform. Another thing they'll do along with varying the amount of muting is to alternate between playing just the root note and the power chord. The next thing we're going to look at is how to make the gallop even more interesting by occasionally changing up the rhythm a little bit. The idea is to keep the gallop rhythm as the bass while throwing in some longer and shorter notes in there as well. Something like this. The last thing I want to address in this video is Iron Maiden's brilliant use of syncopation. I'll probably do a separate video on this topic alone, but in very simplified terms, it means that the accent is sometimes shifted to the upbeat. This makes their music sound more natural, more vibrant, and much more interesting. Some really great examples of syncopation within a gallop rhythm are the main riff from Power Slave and the verse sections of The Trooper. Here's the main riff to Power Slave. So you hear how the A power chord is always accented on the downbeat, but it's really the C and B flat chords that make that riff stand out the way it does, and those are played on the upbeats. An interesting thing about Power Slave is that on the album, they play the gallop quite tightly with a fair amount of palm muting, and it's a pretty steady and uniform sounding gallop throughout the entire song. Live, however, they play it with much less palm muting, and it really opens up the song. And that is the brilliance of Iron Maiden. They know that album recording and live performance are two very distinct settings, and what is best for one may not necessarily be best for the other. So that tight and steady gallop really makes sense on the album version, as it carries the intensity of what the song's protagonist is proclaiming. When Maiden play it live, it's in big arenas and stadiums with huge amounts of people. In a setting like that, you want to be loud and bombastic and really get people's blood pumping. And to do that with this riff, you need to open it up. Finally, let's look at the verse section of The Trooper. This part encompasses everything we discussed in this video so far. The variable palm muting, that loose tight feel, the rhythmic variation, and the syncopation in the tail. Alright, well that concludes this week's video. Before signing off, I wanted to ask that if you enjoyed this one, please hit that like button and leave a comment. It's an easy way to let the algorithm know that you enjoyed this video and that it should be recommended to other viewers. It really helps a whole lot. Also, please consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't already. It also helps tremendously. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all soon with more licks of the beast.